We have a fantastic program and fantastic speakers. So the first half an hour will be covered by Ethica, by Tuuli Kassi and Vilma Autio. And then we have a short session for Q&As. And then we will hand over to our fantastic collaboration partner, Markus Diem of EPEA, and also have Q&As at the end. And of course, you are more than welcome to post your questions during the presentations, and we will be answering them the best we can. A few words about Ethica. So we are the leading agency in designing circular futures, and we work across different sectors, but we also have niche expertise in built environment and textile sector. We're the only consultancy in Finland guiding our clients towards Cradle to Cradle framework, and together with our partner EPEA, we are the Finnish partner for Cradle to Cradle product certification process. And our services cover regenerative growth strategies, circular solutions and concepts, and also regenerative business development. And when we talk about our offering in built environment, then we have the strategic level as well as operational level. And as you can see from this visualization, that we cover different phases of building projects. So it might be guidelines, concept design, it might be circularity coordination, part of the designer group, or it might be developing criteria for circularity, for example. And you can see my fantastic colleagues here. So as mentioned before, Tuuli Kassi and Vilma Autio are the built environment experts and consultants here at Ethica, and I work across different sectors at strategic level. And just to remind us all that we will be recording this session, and it is available on Ethica's YouTube channel after the event. So warm welcome, and now it's time to hand over to Vilma Autio. Stage is yours. Vilma, it's you.
And unmute my mic. Yes.
Right.
Okay. So my name is Vilma Autio, and I work as a circular economy consultant at Ethica in the built environment team, and my background is in architecture and urban planning. And I thought that we would start from the big picture and how the EU is pushing the building sector towards circular economy first. As you all most likely know, the EU has a target to be climate neutral by 2050 and to halt biodiversity loss. And it is quite evident that these targets can't be reached without making a major shift in our approach towards the raw materials that we need for products and construction. So circular economy therefore plays a key role in reaching this climate target. And to mainstream circular economy, the European Commission adopted a new CE action plan in 2020, and it's one of the main building blocks of the European Green Deal. This new action plan announces initiatives along the entire life cycle of products, for example, the eco-design initiative. And this initiative sets requirements on producers to make their products more durable, repairable, and easier to recycle. And of course, these features are especially important in building products, as the built environment uses as much as 50% of yearly raw material consumption in Europe. So we are talking about a major share of all raw material usage there. And to reach the aforementioned climate targets, we need to quickly shift our focus towards restorative and regenerative solutions that actively enhance the state of the environment. Instead of just taking action to slow down the problem, we need to take such actions that we can actively become part of the solution. And at the moment, we feel that companies are still too often focused on the conventional approach of just staying within the effective legislation. But however, law is really slow to change, and I believe it's quite evident to all of us that there is no time to wait with this matter. And for this reason, our shared focus should be on regenerating all natural resources as effectively as possible. Well, then how do we make this shift towards regenerative practices happen? We really need to take steps away from linear economy through recycling towards a truly circular economy. And the principles of CE, so short for circular economy, are informed by nature, where all waste is nutrient for other processes. The key principles of circular economy start with the idea of designing out waste and pollution and keeping materials in circulation while maintaining their value, so keeping the value as high as possible at the same time. And this means that buildings should not be seen only as mines for recyclable materials, but actually as banks for valuable parts that can be reused. And of course, the design of buildings, products, and infrastructure plays an important role in enabling this. And that's where our projects at Ethica also focus, so supporting our clients to implement these principles in their work. I would like to point out that it has been evaluated that all human cities and infrastructure have a mass of over 1,000 gigatons, while trees and shrubs only add up to about 900 gigatons on this planet. So there's really a lot of mass in man-made structures that we have, and a lot of materials. You have perhaps heard of the term urban mining before, where cities are seen as productive sources of raw materials, so in comparison to virgin raw materials. In the near future, they might even be more productive than actual mines for many raw materials. However, as stated earlier, a main principle of circular economy is maintaining the value of materials as high as possible. So we therefore want to prioritize the reuse of, firstly, entire buildings, secondly, building parts, thirdly, construction products, and so forth. So there's like a hierarchy in order to preserve the value of materials. And Tuuli will tell more about this in a little bit. So as professionals and planners, we really need to design all new constructions with their future disassembly and reuse in mind. And I think Tuuli will now describe some strategies on how to do this.
Yes, so to help take these bigger ideas forward, in Ethica we've developed our urban circularity tool originally for use in urban development projects. Since its creation, the tool has also been applied to building level design. The 4 themes here cover regeneration, optimization, creating closed loops, and creating intelligent solutions and services in the built environment. The regeneration covers all kinds of production of resources on site, from energy to food, and also the use of renewable materials. Optimization looks at how the spaces are created efficiently, used flexibly, and maintained with optimized resource use. Closed loop cycles suggests that we would more often actively create looping systems for different material flows in the built environment. In the intelligent services, we look at sharing and virtualization of certain needs of humans, like mobility. The framework has been used for urban design in many different areas of Finland, like a new housing area in Oulu, northern Finland, a block in Jyväskylä in the middle of the country, and a certain central urban development area in Vantaa in the south. Now, when we are designing for circularity, it always relates to the context of the site. what is readily available in the what is readily available in the surroundings? What are the needs and resources at hand? And we are happy to have the opportunity to work with several different levels of design and development. In urban planning, we work together with the town officials and the architects to bring about holistic circular visions for area development. While in building design, these bigger picture goals can be translated into concrete actions. All these different levels are important when we move forward to circular operational models. When we were designing a housing area and development in Oulu, this meant, for example, preserving as much as possible the natural areas around the site and designing a composting network for the area to avoid truck traffic related to bio-waste collection. A lot of thought was also put into flood management by natural methods. As with the climate crisis, the potential for extreme weather events, including flooding, rises. Both in Oulu and our Vantaa urban development cases, the demolition projects of the surrounding town were seen as a potential resource for the new build. In both towns, the developed areas were seen as good display ground for new solutions, so also visible reuse of building materials was suggested. In the near future, we will see how these suggestions will apply in the actualized buildings. Now, here is one way of looking at this reuse of building materials. There's an ongoing EU project called Buildings as Material Banks, and Vilma was also talking about this idea of seeing our built environment as a bank for valuable materials. We see that material value is created through these steps of the building process, using energy and work on each transition from raw material to product manufacture to installation and use in the building. To preserve that value, the buildings should be appropriately maintained for optimized service life. Building products should also be designed for multiple use cycles, thus minimizing the need for virgin raw materials. The bigger aim here is to end the wasteful use of materials altogether. When everything can be used again and again, there's no more need for disposal of waste. At the moment, the discussion in Finland is a lot on the reuse of construction products and the challenges therein. One of the related issues is how to use the national procedures for product approval for reuse in new buildings. At the moment, there is also many very interesting developments in the front of building circularity. Many pilot projects approach circular building from one angle or another. Some of the most visible ones in Finland of late have been a development site in Hakaniemi by Ylva, where focus has been on the material recycling of the demolished buildings, as well as the design for flexibility of the new offices. Another contemporary example are the temporary facilities of Finlandia Concert Hall in the center of Helsinki that have been designed for disassembly and reuse somewhere else after their need here expires. And at Ethica, we also have several ongoing projects that deal with the repair and reuse of building parts. Now, while many interesting pilots focus on one or two circularity features, holistically circular buildings are still scarce in Finland. Now, here is one of our examples, a concept design on how the circularity themes can be brought into a design of a building block. This concept was based on renewables. The block will own a solar farm capable of providing all its inhabitants with the electricity they use, while heating and cooling come mainly from the ground. Apartments were designed from modular parts and to be combined flexibly into different sized apartment units. Some spaces vehicles and utensils were provided through a sharing scheme for the inhabitants. Also, we had a lot of focus on producing food in the block, recycling the nutrients through composting, and providing very biodiverse planting to invite also non-human participants to live in the block. Now, in the big picture, it's really about reimagining the way we create our built environment so that it can support the well-beings of humans and the environment alike. The paradigm shifts needs to go through all levels of decision making. It starts from the governance, but we need to also take action on all levels at the same time, as the legislation can be slow to change. I already mentioned a few examples from our urban planning projects, and now I'll go through with a couple of other levels we've been working with. Real estate owners have an important role to play here as well. Many are setting new targets and revising their strategies to support sustainability, but there is still a lot of work to be done to reach net positive buildings and positive impact in the built environment. One of our clients is the pension fund Varma, who owns over 4 billion euros worth of real estate. It makes a great difference how these buildings are operated and new ones created. We have been working with them from the strategy down into guidelines and instructions on how to maintain their buildings, helping them to pay attention to what kind of material flows go through their buildings and where effective impacts can be made. Another building company, construction company we've been working with is Lehto Group, who have originally wooden modular apartment building concept, but we were working with them to develop them more in a circular fashion. Our discussions included, among other subjects, the sourcing of the wood in these wooden buildings and the optimization of the foundings of these buildings and the wooden structures of the concept design. The outcome was a concept for Europe's most ecological modular wooden building and a roadmap with concrete steps towards this goal. Another case we have been working with is Mangroy, another construction company providing a lot of producing already housing with a strive for regenerative energy production in all of their products. We were involved in this company competition entry team to aim at a holistic circular design for the competition. The smooth collaboration of the competition team produced an efficient wooden housing block that supports both human and more than human inhabitants.
Then to wrap up the first half of our presentation, here's Invisible Acoustic Ceilings, which is the first Finnish company to start the Cradle certification project. And this is obviously fantastic news because Cradle, as we will hear later from Markus, is the most well-known and ambitious circular economy certification that is truly guiding our product design towards safe circular economy. And this is a good moment to have a few questions. And when you signed up to the seminar, we ask you if you have any questions, and here are some of the questions that you posted already at that stage. So before we hand over to Markus, this is now a good moment to answer these three questions. So Tuuli and Vilma,
Please. So the first question is, can surplus products bought by a construction project but not used and then sold on to be seen as used or recycled? Well, in that sense, that it's avoiding the production of waste. If the kind of the other choice would be to send them to landfill or use them for energy, then it's always better to reuse those products. But of course, the ideal situation would be that no products that will not be used would not even be bought. Then the second question was, which fractions of a demolished building can be recycled today versus tomorrow? In the beginning of the seminar, Markus was also already kind of discussing this and how their company is also evaluating the percentages of recyclability in buildings today. At the moment, the fraction is relatively low, but well, of course, if we talk only about material recycling, it can be somewhere around 60%, I think, in Finland, but then they, at the moment, count also the energy use of wood. So in reality, the material recycling levels are even worse. There's a lot of work going on in the reuse of building parts as whole, intact pieces, but some of the procedures and processes, methods are still lacking there. So there's a lot of work and studies going on in this section, but hopefully in tomorrow's world, we will be able to recycle and reuse, and preferably reuse a lot bigger fraction of demolished buildings, especially as this design for disassembly becomes more common. Then our third question was in Finnish, and it relates to this same question of reusing building products and the procedures that are lacking therein. So until now, often the reuse of building parts in Finland has been blocked by the lack of a CE marking for the reused building part. The Finnish Ministry of the Environment aligned that national procedures for product approval can be used to demonstrate that a construction product outside the scope of application of the CE marking meets the requirements of the Land Use and Building Act. But as I said, there is still work to be done to make these procedures efficient and accepted among all the necessary officials. And I think here we will hand over to you, Markus.
All right, thank you very much. I'm not sure if you have my picture now, because I don't see it.
At least here we can see it fine.
Oh, okay. So because actually, yeah, just I just encountered a little problem. Our Wi-Fi broke down, so now I'm back. If I'm disappearing in my speech, I'll come back via mobile network. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So thank you very much, and I will start my presentation now. Yes, perfect. All right. So maybe quickly about myself, who I am. My name is Markus Diem. I'm an architect. I spent most of my time of my career in China, 15 years, where I've worked basically as a green building expert. And 2019, I returned back to Germany, and then I took over the lead of the office of EPEA in Hamburg. And in Hamburg, we have around 40 people right now. So we are the biggest office of EPEA. I will talk about EPEA 2 more minutes before I start with explaining Cradle to Cradle. About EPEA. EPEA is quite an older company already, founded in 1987 by Professor Michael Braungarten. And so basically through all the years, there were different things happening. Basically, I hope that a lot of you people know the book Cradle to Cradle, Remaking the Way We Make Things. Very fantastic book, and can just recommend to read it. And important
Sorry,
is
Markus, just a very brief technical checkup, because we can't see your slides. Are you able to take control of the slides?
I am controlling the slides and I see them.
Okay, they are not changing.
That is weird.
Question and answers.
Yeah.
Shall I maybe quickly go give you the control back and then you hand it over back?
Let's try that.
Let's try that. And now I get it again. Do you see that something is moving now?
No, something.
We went back to the question and answers.
I am now on the page where you see myself, my photo. Ooh, that's weird.
No, it's yeah.
Another thing. Let me quickly quit the meeting and be back in, and maybe then it works again. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm back.
Very
And
good.
I read that the audience can see the slides moving.
Okay, well then go ahead. I think we're familiar with it.
Okay, so if it stops moving, hello, dear audience, and please let me know, yeah?
Yes, fantastic.
Go
Thank you.
ahead.
Okay, so I go back to that slide where I show what happened in history of EPEA. And I was just want to say that 2013, EPEA started the cooperation with Dresden Sommer. And 2019, Dresden Sommer and EPEA merged with each other. And also important to mention is since 2020, we have our cooperation with Ethica. Very important for us. So, and facts about EPEA basically, founded in Hamburg basically, but since now we are owned by the Dresden Sommer Group. Actually, by the way, Dresden Sommer is the biggest German project management company in construction work, not just project management. We come from project management. We do the complete aspects of construction works basically. I mean, planning, engineering. So Dresden Sommer is offering all services in Germany and worldwide, basically, except of architecture design and the construction itself. And EPEA is in Hamburg located mainly, but we have branch offices in Berlin, Stuttgart, Munich in Germany, and also in Eindhoven, Brussels, and Luxembourg. And we have our worldwide partners with, I call it here EPEA Finland, with is Ethica, basically. In our company, we have a very diverse team, a very broad expertise because we need that, because Cradle to Cradle works in all industrial sectors. And of course, we have in our work a focus on the real estate industry, which you will also see here. So we have the real estate as one thing that we are doing, one part. And there we, of course, we work with real estate developers to create healthy and circular buildings in the end, and with the industry to create circular products. And of course, there is an area where both things meet, and these are the construction products. Yeah, they are produced by the industry and they are used for real estate projects. So that's a very important topic. And this is also where there's a lot of raw materials basically embedded in the world, and also which encounters later for a lot of waste. So now I would like to explain quickly the Cradle to Cradle framework. That is important for us to understand where we are coming from. So this should show a little bit about how the industry is working today when we produce products. Yeah? So we harvest resources, we design it, we sell it, we use it. This example, it's an office chair. So mostly an office chair in the end, maybe some parts, what you can see here, is taken back later. I think here, cursor. Yeah. So you see that they come back. Sometimes different parts can come back. But the problem for the whole thing is that the information of all materials included in that office chair is missing through the process, because nowadays we have very complex supply chains. You have a lot of goods produced in Asia, shipped to Europe, and then you don't know what chemicals are inside. That's the problem. And that's why most of it goes nowadays on the disposal side. It's burned, then you get energy, but that is in our case not recycling, or it's just lying in the environment. And ocean plastic, for example, is in the environment. So this is not good. We cannot continue like this because the primary resources are endless. There is no planet outside which is shining steel on our planet. Yeah? The sun delivers energy, but the raw materials are endless on this planet. So, and cradle to cradle is a little bit different. And the main idea you see here, basically, you can see the cursor, actually. I think so, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so cradle to cradle thinks about two different circles, basically. We have the biosphere, and the biosphere is for product that dissolve back into nature. Yeah, this could be, for example, natural fabrics. It could be like cleaning detergents, everything where from our usage, it goes in nature. Yeah? A cleaning detergent goes in the sewage system through the water after you clean it, for example. And it would be good if the biosphere can dissolve it. And in the technosphere, we have most materials circling. These are all other materials, plastic, glass, steel, whatever. Yeah. And this is something that we have to take really good care of, that we reuse these materials. And in cradle to cradle, this information that I first said is missing is not missing anymore, because these products are assessed. And we are working, when we do an assessment, with the supply chains. So we know what's in the product. And this information is stored as well and documented. So it's also available in the time when this product is not used anymore. And this allows us to bring the goods, the different materials from a product much better back into a circle. And this is basically, I think this butterfly is quite famous, because many people saw it already. So this is the basic principle behind Cradle of Cradle. And we call this a slide Cradle to Cradle in a nutshell. It should just explain quickly the mindset of the framework. And we saw this picture already before at the presentation. It just looked a little bit different, but it's really mainly about maximizing the positive footprint. Yeah, so that, for example, that the materials you use to build something are not produced emitting a lot of CO2. Yeah, and having the gray energy inside. It should be that this is carbon neutral products, for example. And here we are always getting more efficient. Yeah, we put insulation on the building, we use less fossil energy. So it's just reducing the negative impact, but it's not turning it to a positive impact. And this is what Cradle to Cradle is about, and what Cradle to Cradle wants to reach. And for this, Cradle to Cradle has three different principles. And the most important one is nutrients remain nutrients, basically. So everything is always reused again and becomes a nutrient for the rest. And also at the background photo of Ethica colleagues, you see the cherry tree. And this is by Michael Braungart, always the symbol for the circle, basically. The next one is use of current solar income. Yeah, I think it's clear. We need to produce everything with green energies, not with fossil energies. And Cradle to Cradle is celebrating diversity. This basically stands for that we wish to have different solutions, because there are always different solutions, which is good. It's flexible. And in Cradle to Cradle, we look at materials considering these 5 criteria. We always say first, material needs to be healthy, that it can go become circular, basically, because we do not want to have toxic chemicals circulating in a product. And of course, we need to respect the climate and the ecosystem where, for example, the factory is built on, the soil, that we do not put harmful materials into the soil. And very important also for humans is the social fairness. These are, of course, topics which are in different countries a little bit more crucial. For example, when you think about textile industry, which we also work in, there with social fairness, we still have some problems in some places. And now I would like to show you quickly our image film that Professor Braungart, I think, made in 2017 or something. I choose this because it explains in 2-minute cradle-to-cradle framework in a nutshell very well. So I think this showed quite well the cradle-to-cradle framework. And this topic is about the cradle-to-cradle certification. So that's always important to know that there is also a certification standard, because often customers call us and they basically ask about the certification. And we feel that they don't understand the framework, basically, which we think it's important. That's why we also offer these workshops, that you understand the complete system. So now I would quickly like to explain a little bit about the certification standard. Basically, it's a global standard and it belongs basically to all different industrial sectors. I have to say that in the last 2 years, the demand for C2C certified products increased a lot. And it's mainly increased in the construction products sector. And the certification is handled by the C2C PRI, the Cradle to Cradle Product Innovation Institute, which sits in the United States of America. And they are basically handing over the certification. And EPEA as a company is like, we take the customer by the hand and we go the path for the certification with them, and we do all the assessments for the chemicals. Also in the certification, you have these 5 categories that we just mentioned as principles from the framework, but we also have 4 different levels. There is a new version out now, version 4, which only has 4 levels. There was an old version, 3.1, which had 5 levels. There was another one under this one, but it was changed. And the requirements for the categories are increasing with every level, basically. And that's why we have those different levels. And this is also the sign on the product that you can purchase somewhere that shows you that this is a certified product. Important is, because often comes that question, Cradle to Cradle is not a building certification. It's a product certificate. But the product certification basically is recognized positive by different building certifications like LEED, WELL, DGB, BREEAM, what you're just seeing over there. So now we talk about healthy and circular products. And it's basically, this is just an overview of some chemicals which are still inside products that we use in buildings. And of course, parts of it later evaporate and you can breathe them in with the indoor air, basically. So a big topic in this case is indoor air quality. And we have that problem nowadays because back in history, we had no insulation. We maybe had some harmful materials, but the chance is not as big because 200 years ago, the chemistry was not as complex as today. So today we have that thing that we have highly insulated and sealed building shells, and we have a lot of different materials that we do not know what's inside. And that's why we have often the so-called sick building syndrome, because you have just toxic materials and you breathe them in. Some people have allergies, some people get a headache. So that's something that is not good. We should not allow that. And in future, we think it needs to still stay a highly insulated sealed building because of the energy, that the energy is just used very well. But inside should not be toxic materials anymore. It should be healthy materials. It sounds a little bit strange sometimes to talk about a healthy building, but this is now common in our language, basically. And here is basically a measurement of the volatile organic compounds, basically. And this here is the threshold down there. This is the sum of all, and this is just based on formaldehyde thresholds. And this was a cafeteria of a school in Stuttgart in Germany. And these measurements were done before the building was handed over to the owner. So it was brand new. And you see that the values are very low compared with the threshold. So there is still tiny little fractions inside, but most of them are out because here was special, we took special care of material health inside the building and make sure that only positive materials were used. And this slide summarizes a little bit. We need healthy materials, then we can go circular. And if then we even have a positive impact, then it's beneficial, basically. And here is an example of a product. This is an old customer of us, used to be the company Deso, now bought by Target. And they have products. In this case, it's a carpet, which is material health is very good. Yeah, everything is known is 100% positive. You can recycle the complete materials. And the beneficial part is that the structure of the carpet is basically collecting fine dust. And in these rooms where you have that carpet, there's less fine dust pollution than in other rooms due to this special way of producing it. And here is another acoustic panel from Toltec, for example. So there are a lot of different products that are certified. And I would also like to show you the Building Material Scout. This is the start page, basically. So feel free to browse it a little bit. This is a collection where sustainable materials are basically shown. And you can also see a lot of details about them. This is a platform where people can basically, customers, companies can register the products. And this is for architects, planners to have a database to look for good products. Here is an example now, for example, for a facade, for an outdoor facade, which is a mechanical fix. So when we help architects to build, to plan buildings according to cradle design framework, then of course we do not glue. We use screws. We use everything that we can dismount easily, basically. And this here is a facade detail, which is on the way. It's a C2C detail. Of course, we see here 60% downcycling. That still needs to be better, yeah, but we are on the way. And if you compare it to a conventional facade nowadays, it's you see here with all this glue stuff, yeah, you have an EPS insulation, you have the different layers all glued to it. This whole thing later is burned or goes in landfills or is downcycled, but nearly nothing is upcycled or recycled. And with the other detail, you see that this is eliminated basically. So that's much better than this facade. Yeah, this is garbage basically, and this is still something that you can mostly reuse later. So this is the direction we need to go. And these are all things which is according to Cradle to Cradle. We do not like to see this, but I think it's easy to understand that everything that is basically glued together with heat as well, like composite panels, it's just, you do not, right now, there's not really the technology that you can separate this in the raw materials again to recycle it. That's why we don't like that. Cradle to Cradle engineering, we call it today. It's a discipline basically, which I will explain in this chapter. And here's about the construction sector contribution to the usage of resources worldwide. And here we can really see we have a raw material issue. Yeah, construction sector basically has half of the raw materials worldwide and generates 60% of the waste. That's too much. Also, the European Union already realized this. So they go for circular economy action plan. Parts of this was already mentioned from the speakers before. And for example, also here are some examples what the European Union is working on right now, and ISO certification is coming up, basically framework for the code design. So in Germany, we used to have only this energy things that you need to have in the beginning of a planning process to get the approval from the authorities, but the new government basically is pushing for a material passport as well, which is a topic that I will explain right now. So this is history, this is past, yeah, waste of resources. Some go still in streets or whatever, but it's always this downcycling, and the rest goes in landfills. And the future is that we need to see a building as a material bank with all valuable resources, that it's totally a good idea to harvest them because they have a value. Yeah. Okay, so the standard building is in the top. The problem is that in old buildings, of course, raw materials are not documented. So there is no value because there is no identity. So if you document something, you give it an identity, and then you also have a value of the materials. So in Cradle to Cradle inspired buildings, we call it, the raw materials are documented, they are optimized, and they can be reused again. In the end of life, they can be sold. So they bring cash, basically. Okay, so this is just a screenshot of a circular design tool that we are using, and we are also developing this actually by ourselves. And this is a tool we use for in the planning phase. You can type in different, in this case, it's an interior wall. So there is a big database behind it. So you can use different materials, like the normal gypsum wall, something with wood, maybe wood framework, whatever. And you see different values basically here. Yeah? And they are how good is the material, how good can you reuse it, carbon footprint, and also a material value. And this can be used basically by architects, for example, in to have a real-time planning and to see what impact it has if I change a material in the building. And all this later, so this is basically where we put our data in our projects. And the result of it is our so-called building circularity passport. So everything that we type in the software, basically, that we optimize, that we check out, that we try, later is shown and documented in the Building Circularity Passport. And we have full transparency here, different aspects basically like material health, the carbon footprint, the origin of the materials as well. This basically means is it a secondary material that was used already, or is it a sustainable material that basically comes from sustainable sources, so that are growing again. And of course, the stuff that is based on fossils is also in, but it's not good. And then we also check the recyclability, how you can separate it, basically, how you can dismount it. And this all later gives these numbers that you see here. This is basically the overview page. And every chapter basically has an own page where you see the results. And again, the results come from what you type in the circular design tool. So important is to mention Madasta. I don't know if Madasta actually is already in Finland. Madasta is an online platform where all information about the materials used in buildings are stored. And important thing is that it's accessible for everyone, basically. So I will go to the next slide. So basically, if we use our Building Circularity Passport, all this information from that passport can be stored in Madasta. And with this, basically, it's still owned by the property owner, but he or she can make it accessible for different people. And you just need to think about that maybe in 100 years, when the economy is very different and the construction projects are very different, then we will check on such a platform. All right, I'm planning a new factory. I need this steel beams. I need that. And then I can check in which project, older project, is a steel beam maybe that's matching my requirements is getting available, basically. And this is how this complete thing about reusing building construction materials should be heavily supported. An interesting issue is as well, let me explain you this slide. Here we check about the values, basically, of a building that follows the cradle-to-cradle framework. In the beginning, you build a building. These are the construction costs until you finish it. In blue, you see the cradle-to-cradle inspired building, and this is the conventional building here in green. So the cradle-to-cradle building would be a little bit more expensive, because the quality of a cradle-to-cradle product is better. So, and of course, also for sustainable materials, you pay a lot more right now, which we hope will be the same level or even cheaper in the future, because it should be a common standard. So because the quality is higher, you have less decrease of the value. So the conventional building is losing the value faster. And then this is always a renovation, basically, where you put cash in again in your building. So interesting, it will be until the time when the building cannot be operated anymore. And this is the moment that, especially nowadays, it's very often that you have to pay for demolishing your building, because there's a lot of unknown materials and it's a lot of effort. So you even pay a price to demolish it. And with the background that you document the raw materials and the assumption that raw materials by years over years increase in their value, in their price. Think about copper, all that charging stations in the cities nowadays. So copper is getting less and less. So we think the price might rise. So in the end, because you have it documented, you can sell it. So you are paid for the demolishing. And that's the big difference, basically. In the beginning, I called that chapter basically cradle-to-cradle engineering, circular engineering. So this is what our people doing working at EPEA in the real estate team. They check that products are healthy, and everything which is healthy can be recycled basically. And then you need to work with planners that the construction details are made in a way. I'm always trying to compare it with a construction company working for exhibitions. Yeah, they raise up a booth and after 1 week they have to demolish it again. So they think from the beginning on, how can I dismount everything and reuse it? Yeah? So this is the way that architects in future need to construct the building. No glue, everything think about in elements and how can you separate the elements that you can reuse the materials. And of course, if you have a flexible building, you can use the civil structure, for example, much longer. Yeah, I have quite saw a lot of buildings in China, especially where they transformed shopping malls into offices or whatever. Yeah, so because they thought a little bit more flexible. So last chapter is called references, but actually it's just a few things, but also Dresden Sommer built a new, basically we have this headquarter campus in Stuttgart, and that's a new building. Yeah, this is also where my colleagues from EPEA in Stuttgart are sitting in. And of course, for this building, we try to be as circular as we can and just show a few things that we did. This is also a look into the planning phase. Again, this is our tool where we can see, in this case, we show right now how much CO2 is in these elements that you see. Red would be, for example, a lot of CO2 and gray energy, so you can optimize it in the process. And this is basically now photos of the construction phase. So here, the thermal insulation composite system that now is a standard system that I showed before. And if you think here is the facade, that the facade was actually thought about together with the facade supplier. And there was a cooperation from my colleagues from Dresden Sommer and from our people from EPEA and the company building the facade. So we really developed a new facade system. And this facade system is brought up on site in these elements. And the elements are built in a way that you can really dismount nearly everything. So you see that this assembly here would be here on 100%, and here is 0%. Material origin here is basically not so good, yeah, because most is fossil, yeah. Here is already better because we reuse material, we use sustainable sources. It's much better to separate because we planned it like this. Here it's just 30% possible, and the material utilization is 99% versus 50%. So this is already a good step, and by the years, of course, the target is 100 on the right side. Yeah, but slowly. Services, for example, building services in the building, like in this case, electrical installation you see here. We used a system basically that is mounted in ready-made pieces already, and you just mount it on the ceilings and connect it. Yeah, everything is basically pre-made in the factory, and that's why also the values here are much higher because it's planned to be recyclable in the end. Then we have here in flooring, for example, the normal carpets, yeah, are glued. We exchanged our carpets here in our office, yeah, and the most time we used was to put the old carpets out again. And then we used loose carpet tiles. They have a little bit of connection to the floor by a special system. We have this carpet tiles also that I mentioned before that are air cleaning, and they can be recycled 100% later. And also in our office building, we used this system. And here are just some projects we did. This was the first one in the cooperation between EPEA and Dresden Sommer. This is in Essen. It was the first project basically where we started to basically do the first concepts. This is a new headquarter from Schüco. This, for example, also has a building circularity passport. This is one which is under construction right now. Also, I think there will be new photos soon coming up in our social medias. And we have a little last film here where you see different players for that project and what they think about Cradle to Cradle and why they are doing it. Language is German with English subtitles. I will show that. I think that is 3 minutes, and then I am done with my presentation.
Great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Markus. We have 10 minutes for the questions, and we already have some in chat. So the first one goes to you, Markus. It's been asked by Paul. In the Netherlands, NOx is a big problem of and for the construction sector. How is this taken into account in LCA and/or circular design in Germany?
All right, now the first question is unfortunately a question I cannot answer. I need to ask my expert there because I haven't heard that this is a big issue in Germany, but I think if it's a big issue in the Netherlands, it also will be a big issue in Germany. So that one I need to move to the future. I have to ask my expert.
Okay.
I know at least about one product, like a roof product in Finland that's been designed to capture the nitrous oxides from the air. So I think, yeah, it's been considered as a problem here as well in Finland.
Yeah. Then a next question by Bruno. Tuuli and Vilma, would you talk a bit more regarding the main challenges toward implementing circularity in the construction sector in Finland on a daily basis? Where are the bottlenecks?
Perhaps can I have a few words, and Tuuli, then I think you have also
Go
your
ahead.
perspective on this. I think some of the challenges stem from the kind of very core principle that circular economy is a very local, has to be very localized. So in Finland, the building stock that we have as sort of our current material bank is different, for example, from Germany. So we can, of course, look at ideas from other countries, but we always have to solve them locally. And some of the issues that we have to solve in Finland is, I guess they are different depending on what has been the original use of the building in question. For example, if we look at industrial buildings, we might be coming across harmful chemicals that do not enable the reuse of the building parts. And of course, also the legislation has gone through rounds of changes. For example, if we look at buildings from the 60s, 70s, 80s, there is now a requirement for a higher we are now having to design higher what is kerros? Stories. So the story height is different, and therefore, for example, facade elements cannot be reused directly because the height is not matching. But perhaps, Tuuli, you have some insight on legislation or other bottlenecks.
Well, clearly for the reuse of building parts, this question we had earlier about the CE markings has been a bottleneck. The different interpretations by the officials have been a challenge for the reuse of building parts here in Finland. Otherwise, I think one of the bottlenecks or challenges are, of course, like the investors, building investors who are just slowly warming up to this. We have been working with some of them, but especially Senat Properties, who is managing the state-owned real estate, is taking leaps forward in this regard. They are thinking about the circularity and circular maintenance of their building stock a lot, and taking and creating pilot projects on how to manage their buildings and their parts circularly. But still, there's a lot of building owners, and not all of them are familiar with the idea of circularity and the benefits that it could bring. That is one of the issues here as well.
Thank you. And then there's another question to Markus. Based on your opinion, how can we enhance second raw materials use in the building sector? Where are the main opportunities for Cradle strategy in building sectors now?
And second raw materials used in the building sector. Honestly, right now, we feel here that secondary materials used for new works. So, for example, we have a lot of customers who taking that topic over for shops design. They use basically secondary materials when they enhance their shops, basically after a few years, give a new design. So they come a lot with that materials right now, and they honestly they have their own ideas, and also for example they buy the goods from companies which are leaving locations, and then they reuse them for themselves basically. So that is happening right now. I think that the big challenge there is in the big picture is really like, if I look at the windows that I have here a meter next to me, they look still very good. So if this building is not used anymore, I think there needs to be a system that this materials are taken back to a certain kind of company, and also they refurbish, and they also make quality testings. Because of course nowadays for windows we have like we need a thermal insulation of the glazing. So is that still okay? Basically, we need to check that. Is safety issues, are this is still okay? This needs to be checked. And then this company needs to give a warranty for the product. Yeah, that's of course important, because otherwise, I think in a lot of projects, people would maybe not take this refurbished window because they're a little bit scared. But if by regulations and by laws everything is fixed and thought about, I think this will become really a big market, and there will be a trading off basically. We also have in our projects with our mother company, we sometimes have these questions. Do you have an idea where we can get that material or that? We would like to use more secondary materials. And right now we are still looking basically into our projects and then estimate if there's something possible or not. And there we also, for example, we thought about making our own company internal database. Let's see. And yeah, where are the main opportunities for Cradle to Cradle study in building sector right now? Yeah, we believe really that the biggest opportunity is just to understand and to follow the circularity passport, that you document the raw materials, and that the person or the company who is investing in the building realize with this system, I can really make cash after the lifetime of the building, and actually I can save tax already in the beginning. So I think this is really a big opportunity on the one hand, and the other thing is still this material health is an important issue. In my experience, I had a lot of experience in China where people were sitting after they moved to new interior spaces with masks in the office. Yeah, in Shanghai you have a lot of outdoor pollution, but they were sitting inside with a mask because they were scared of the pollution. Yeah, so it's a big topic, and if you as a company, if a big company, let's say from Siemens, yeah, if they offer this to their employees, I think it's important that the employee is healthy, is feeling well and feeling treated well by the company. So I think this is another really big opportunity for Cradle to Cradle in the building sector.
Thank you so much. We have 1 minute left, so very briefly, there's a question that how much building constructors take in account the climate changes in making buildings more resilient? Vilma, Tuuli, Markus, very brief, 20-second answer, please.
Tuuli, go ahead if you have a...
No.
And the building constructors is, of course, let's say this is something that it's a next mission. Yeah, the mission is to get the construction companies on board, get the handcraft people on board, because in that chain of the process, everyone needs to understand, why do I do it different than before? Because if the guy who fixes the insulation to the wall doesn't really know it, he's maybe not doing a good job. So, but the answer is very little right now. Yeah, they are still trained, and they are trained by those new projects from the real estate developer. So in future, there will be more companies doing this. But it was a good question, because you basically hit the nail that this is a big issue still.
Thank you so much. Our time is up now. So thank you, Vilma, Tuuli, Markus, and all the attendees, and thanks for your fantastic questions. You can see our details here, so we're more than happy to continue discussion on these topics and help you to make your projects and the entire building sector more circular. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a really nice rest of the day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.